I'm Liz.
I'm Robby. Welcome back to our channel, Bookworm Couple. Today we are going to be talking about the fourth book in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, Queen of Shadows. This is, well, you know,
The fourth book.
The fourth book. It was my first time reading it. And I liked it better than the last one, which isn't saying a ton. I didn't really like the last one that much. But I am glad that this seems to be moving in a more positive direction.
Yeah,
Did you,
cool.
Did you like this book?
This to me was when the series got really good.
Okay.
In my memory of reading it. I am due for a reread though, but I remember it being like, okay, I'm in it.
Alright, that's encouraging.
This felt like a turn in the series for me.
Okay, I mean, that makes sense to me, and I hope that I feel that way too. I mean, I again, similar to my problems with the last book, felt that the second half was much, much stronger than the first, not to the degree that the last one. I really hated the first half of the last book, but
A lot of brooding.
There's so much brooding, and I love a brood. I brood in real life. I love to brood.
You are a brooder.
But it's just, it was a lot. But yeah, I think that this book has very big, like, this is the end of part one of the Throne of Glass series energy, and I like it. Some things happened that I wasn't really expecting, but which is good. Which is good. A lot does. A lot happens in this book. A lot is covered. A lot of dynamics change in a very, very big way. And I'm excited to see what they go, but I am also hesitant because the last time I felt this way, it was at the end of book 2. I was excited because I think there was a huge jump in quality between Throne of Glass, book 1, and Crown of Midnight, the second book. And I do not think the third book really paid off on that in any way. I mean, like...
You did also slow down because you read the prequel in between that as well.
I totally forgot that. And I also, that's another thing I want to bring up. Why did I read the prequel then? I still don't think I needed to read it yet because basically none of it has been relevant.
Okay.
But no, is there a reason? I'm really asking you.
As to why you read it third?
Yeah.
I think because...
Is that when it was published?
Potentially.
Okay.
That's a great question. Someone I'm sure will know. Going back now, like that was what was recommended to me. It was either that or read it first. And I didn't want to read it first, and I'm glad that I didn't. Personally, I don't think that I would have gotten the like ramp up into this series had I read it first, but that's just my personal preference. I also haven't done it, so I can't tell you. Can't go back in time. But I believe that's because it's right before we really get to know a lot of stuff about Selena and like Sam, and so to me that's where the Sam stuff really hit. But in general, also I think it's just because like I think if you waited longer, it would seem even more trivial. It
still seems pretty trivial to me so far because I understand that.
I also think I mean, I guess the other option would be to read it right before this one. Great.
If that means that I'm finally actually going to see some of those characters that came up, I'm thrilled.
I feel like there's got to be a reason. Somebody knows. There's so much discourse on the internet about the reading order of Throne of Glass, so I don't even know if we want to get into
Is the next one the one that I'm supposed to do like a tandem read with something else? I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous.
The world is going to be so disappointed.
I don't care.
I didn't do it either.
I
think whenever I do a reread of the series, I will try the tandem read, but when it was suggested to me, I understand it. It sounds so cool. It does, but I was very because I've never done anything like that before, so I think for a reread I will do it, but I know that's not your cup of tea, so that's fine.
I also have faith in my own ability to like hold a narrative in my head.
It's not that. From what I've been told, it's that like reading them together is epic because they happen at the same time, and so you're watching things unfold in different spaces at the same time. From what I've been told, it's a really great payoff. I've never done it, so...
Okay, well, whatever.
Well, if you're a fan of the tandem read, convince Robby.
But I'm not going to do the tandem read, and I still think, and I'm still waiting for the prequels to become relevant. I understand that the point of them, we also shouldn't be talking about this, because this is a Queen of Shadows.
No,
but I'm going to make my point anyway.
Prequel. I guess that's
I understand
spoilers.
that it's about Sam.
Kind of?
No, because we've already read it, and apparently everyone will have read it already anyway.
Yeah.
I know it's about the relationship with Sam. That was one of the least interesting parts of it for me, and so basically nothing else in it has been relevant. And no, whatever, I can't. See my thoughts in our video on, what was it called?
Assassin's Blade.
Assassin's Blade. I didn't like it, if you can't tell. Anyway, back to the matter at hand, Queen of Shadows.
Queen of Shadows, overall.
Overall, I liked it. I definitely liked it more than the last book, which is a low bar, but I did like it. What?
You just like have to keep putting that in there, like digging the knife in.
Because I realized in retrospect,
you want to reread
I was too lenient on Air of Fire. The longer I sit with it, the less redeeming qualities I find in it, and the less I like it. So I actually do think I rated it. I think I gave it like 3.5. If I had to rate it now, I'd give it a 3, maybe even a 2.5. I really just did not enjoy that
So
book.
that sets up the ranking for this one, I feel like.
I guess, but mostly it's just about me having a bone to pick with how much I dislike Air of Fire.
That's fair.
Anyway, Queen of Shadows, definitely a big step up. The first part of the book, which I think is about 60% of it, there were some issues I had with it, but that was also, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in the spoiler section of the video, on me and my expectations and my thoughts and trust about the author and Sarah J. Maas. Because, there were some things that she did that I didn't expect, and I was not ready for, and I'll cover that more later. We'll get there. I'm glad to hear that this is where you think the series starts really getting good, because I am optimistic at the end. My favorite part of this book was like the last 5 to 10%, where not even like where all the crazy stuff happened, but the wrap up of the crazy stuff and what it could mean for the future. So I'm optimistic, I think, going forward.
Cool beans.
Cool. All right, so I guess we're going to start diving into some more specifics. So if you have not read Queen of Shadows yet, I would recommend that you pause this video, go read it, and then come back, and we'll be here when you return. So, spoilers coming in 3, 2, 1. I don't even know where to begin with this one, but I guess we'll start with some of the characters.
Yeah.
There were some new characters in this one that I did enjoy. I liked Nesrin a lot. Is that how you say her name?
I believe that's how I said it in my head.
I like her a lot. She's so much better for Kale.
Oh,
Goodness gracious.
They're a good match.
I also thought that this was funny because this was the book where Sarah J. Maas was like, at least it felt like to me, I'm going to take a stock of every named character that I have made from the first book and haven't really used that much, and now I'm going to like give them actual like backstory, a personality, and also powers, like all of them.
Okay, so who?
Parrington is now possessed by a demon.
Yeah,
Arrowhead.
Parrington was kind of a big deal in the first book.
He was kind of a big deal in the first book, but we haven't seen him in 2 books, really. So I'm just saying it's like bringing back a lot of characters. Coltane, who was a random character who now has a bunch of power.
Coltane definitely had a plan.
Lysandra, who was like...
Yeah, we rarely got anything from
and I just think it's very funny that...
I understand your feeling of that with her, but Coltane and Duke Parrington, I feel like...
I think it's just funny that all of them have powers.
Well, we're in a world in which the magic was taken away, so it feels right that there are going to be more people with powers than not. Sure,
it's not something that bothers me. It's something I just think is funny because it just so happens that the characters that haven't been centralized a lot were really heavily centralized in this, and I liked at least 2 of their storylines. And I don't really... Parrington's fine, whatever. We're just like, oh, he's actually the big bad guy. Cool. But I liked Lysandra and Coltane's story in this a lot, and I just think it's funny that all of them like have magic powers now, and they didn't originally. It's just whatever. It's not a bad thing. Yeah, I also like that Nesrin's family randomly was like a baker.
Oh yeah,
and, like
cute.
Make tarts.
So cute.
And then took care of
Fleetfoot. And she's also like a badass warrior.
There is a bit where she shoots an arrow out of the air that I was like, okay.
Which is also like a really cute juxtaposition that like her family's like a cute little, cute little bakery, and she's like not messing around.
Yeah, but and Evangeline, new character.
Oh.
Love her.
Little
yeah,
cutie.
Lysandra was a highlight of this book for me, I gotta say. She was great.
She's one of my favorite characters.
Her backstory is, of course, very tragic. It's a young adult book. I don't think you can be a POV character without having a tragic backstory. But her backstory is very tragic. Giving her Evangeline as like a foil really endears her to you very quickly, which is important because you've only been supposed to hate her really
right,
up
you've got to
until
trust
now.
her really quick.
Yeah, you got to trust her really quick, and so it's kind of give someone a kid to look after is kind of a cheap and easy way to make you like them, but it works. So who cares? And her being a shifter is great. And her entire arc with Aelin, I guess we're just going to go with the real names now.
Yeah, because she's
with
out.
Aelin is great. I think that the best thing Sarah J. Maas does is character relationships with each other. Even if sometimes they are like over angsty, but again, I sometimes forget that these characters are all supposed to be teenagers, so it's kind of fair. Because there was a point where I wrote down in my notes, I was like, everyone in this like world's reaction to something not going their way is to lash out at people who are not actually being mean to them, and I'm getting kind of over it. Like, Kale does it to Nesrin multiple times after Aelin did it to him, and I was just like, come on.
You lash out at the people you love because they're never gonna...
I understand that, yes. But anyway, I really liked that Elena and Lysandra's relationship and the arc that they went through. I also like that Lysandra became very, we learned about her skills and the stuff that she's learned over her years being a prostitute. And then her being able to turn into, what is it, a snow
leopard.
Snow leopard was just dope. That was just good stuff.
Yeah, she's cool.
I did like her vomiting all over Adian, and I do approve of the fact that I think they're totally gonna do it. Which seems like fun hinting. And maybe, and this is totally off base, but like the very end of the book, I was like, Dorian and Manon? Maybe? I don't know.
We love our sweet Dorian,
we
so
love
hope
our
he's
sweet Dorian.
happy baby.
Speaking of Dorian, my favorite boy, really heartbreaking to watch his journey throughout this book. Really, really sad. Descent into darkness. There's a bit where like I was like, oh no, is Dorian gonna like become the bad guy? And he still might, which I think would actually be an interesting route to take the character now that the king is gone and Dorian has been left alone. Kale and Nesrin are gonna leave. Like the Aelin's court is gone. So like I wouldn't think it would be weird if Dorian like turned and started becoming more like his father, but I don't think that's gonna happen. But I wouldn't. It wouldn't be like outside the realm of possibility in my mind. But it was rough. It was rough. There was a point where I thought that they were trying to be like, he's going to be corrupted even once the thing leaves, and I was like, please no, please don't do that. I like Dorian just the way he is.
Yeah, but Manon spotted him.
Yeah, Manon spotted him. It's a lot of sexual tension. I'm all about it, really. Yeah, I mean, it was him having, like, him being weirdly, like, the most powerful thing in the world is amusing to me.
Yeah,
just
we
like
love it.
such a sweet little boy. It's so strong. You know, and I'm assuming that his arc is going to continue to deal with the ramifications of like what he learned about his dad and then what he did to him, and also the fact that he paralyzed Kale and he killed a lot of people. So I'm interested to see where he goes. We didn't get a lot of him, but there was a great payoff at the end, I thought, with the way that his storyline wrapped up. I found that the scene where him and Kale met up after they both woke up after all the stuff happened at the castle was very emotional. I liked that scene a lot. I'm just excited to see what happens. I just want more Dorian. I love Dorian. He's the best. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was not that heavily featured in the next book, because I'm imagining it's going to be all about Aelin setting up her court, and I don't know that he's going to be super relevant to that. But who knows? Maybe I'm totally wrong.
We shall see.
We shall see. Who next? Who do I want to go into next? I'm going to leave Aelin and Rowan for a while, because I have a lot to say. Kale being paralyzed is crazy. That is not what I thought. He had an interesting journey through this, really struggling. There were bits where I was like, why are you still following her around? She's treating you like crap. Yeah. Like, she really was, for parts. And so there were bits, and this is part of what I'm going to get into about, like, what I didn't really love about the first part of the book. A lot of it didn't make sense to me. I found some of it to be needlessly opaque, and the payoff was there when, like, all of Aelin's plans kind of were revealed and came to fruition. But the way it was set up, I thought was was extremely just muddled. And to be fair, part of that was on me not having seen Sarah J. Maas pull something like that off before, just being like, where is this going? I didn't expect her to do that. I kind of was just like, I've suddenly gotten very confused, and none of the relationships between these characters are making sense to me because no one's telling each other anything. And sometimes, like, people like Kale are following Aelin for what seems to be almost no reason. Like, she's not giving him a reason. Like, she's like, she's obviously gonna kill Dorian. Like, anyway, so that was one of my struggles in the beginning of the book. So I did have some struggles reading through Kale's parts, because I was just like, I don't understand what's happening here. Like, why are you doing this? But overall, I thought Nesrin was a great addition to his storyline. And, I mean, I'm assuming that they're both going to go down to the southern continent and go to that school with the healers that I forget the name of, and that healer that Aelin sent off, that girl who wanted to be a healer whose name I am forgetting, who was my favorite character from the Assassin's Blade collection of prequels, is going to show up and be relevant somehow. Maybe heal him or like be just like a novice there or something. I don't care. I'm just excited to see her. And it is also the only thing I will accept. If she doesn't show up, I might stop reading the book. Because it's been too long. It's been way too long since I read those prequels, and none of those characters have been named. But anyway, the Morath plotline I thought was superior, whatever. I don't know. I liked
You just liked that part, yeah.
I liked it more than I liked anything that was happening in Rifthold, really. And that's not to say that all the stuff in Rifthold wasn't good, and the ending sequence at Rifthold was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought the intrigue and the, like, full-on body horror in a YA novel in that part was nuts. I was kind of surprised to see that in a book that is still considered to be in a YA series. A lot of, like, forced impregnation by demons, and yeah, it was just intense, and I liked it a lot. It was really good.
It was intense and dark and
intense and dark, and I really liked it.
It's so funny that you say that, because like it was not my favorite.
I can't imagine
it stressed me out so much. It stressed me out so much.
Yeah.
But I also like
the high stakes.
For me, it took me a while to get on like Team Witches because of how they're because of how they're thrown into. Is it the second book?
Third.
The third book. That it took me a while to be like, why are we here? Why am I into them? Is this going to pay off? Are they going to be characters? And once we got to know Manon a little bit more, I was full on Team Manon. And so this one was really when I became like full Team Witches, because this was when we get more of their backstory, we get more of the emotions, we get more of the like relationships between them, and a little bit more of the isms between like all the
different clans?
Because the clan, that doesn't interest me too much. It's the characters. It's always me and the characters, you know?
Sure.
I'm like, I want the emotional character. And this is where I feel like we really got to know the 13. And we got to know Manon. And we got to know, like... And then we also get Allied, too. Who is, it's... At first you're like, who is this? She's new.
She's
where are we going?
Somewhat related to other people.
She's obviously important.
Yeah.
When is this going to pay off as well? This seems scary and stressful over and over and over again until we get to a little bit of a release.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I mean, I don't know if the witches showed up in book 2. I don't think they did a lot, but they showed up a lot in book 3. And again, when I spoke of in the last video for Air of Fire, I still hold fast to the fact that I do still think that they could have taken all of the witch stuff out of Air of Fire and made it a novella, and I think that would have been better. And I think the Air of Fire book would have been better for it. I loved this plot line. I loved the witches last time. I think the witches are the most interesting part of world building that Sarah J. Maas has done. I don't know that I think her world building is like incredible in this series, but I like the witches. I just do. I think they're interesting, and I like Manon a lot. I will say part of her plot line in this was like, what is going to make her actually betray her grandmother and like not be terrible and sacrifice other witches to have demons spawn? And it took a little longer than I would have liked for her to, because I was just like, I know it's gonna happen.
Yeah,
so just like,
I feel you.
But I will say the payoff was really good because of Asterin's really tragic storyline. So sad.
But that to me is where I like made the connection of like, oh, 13 is dope. Like,
yeah, 13 are
the
great.
13 are like these really hardcore warriors who care about each other, and it was like, you like kind of get that of like loyalty, because you're like loyal to your clan, you're loyal to whatever, but I feel like this is the one where you really got like, oh, specifically the 13 is so powerful.
Yes.
Because they are loyal to another, and they have a love. Whether they say that as love or not, you can tell between what happens to them that there's definitely a love between this group of witches, and I love that. I love the 13.
They're really great. I'm really excited to continue. I was really excited when there was a convergence in this book where they all met in the woods, and the high witches are going to show the King of Adarlan, whose name I still don't know, was shown their weapon, and that's when, Aelin and Rowan and her court went to save Lysandra after she was captured. And I was like, amazing, big convergence, a lot of stuff was going to happen. Was actually kind of disappointed because not a lot of stuff happened, because nothing really changed with Manon's grandmother, which is one big issue I have, is it's not been explained yet why she is so obsessed with working for the King of Adarlan, or, I mean, I assume she knows that Arwen, the big bad, is in control, and for some reason that's something she's interested in, but we just got nothing. She's just like, she never ever said anything specific about how she feels about them using witches as essentially breeding stock, which and Manon didn't stand up to her. So it's just, I'm really dying for some kind of answer there. Even if it's just, she's like, I just don't care. That's fine. But we didn't actually get that because she didn't address it specifically. She just said, just do what they say, which isn't really enough in my mind. But anyway, so there was a cool fight between Aelin and Manon, and Aelin saved her life, which was great. But yeah, I was a little bit disappointed, but then, you know, kind of led to at least Manon saving Dorian's life, and maybe more. Who knows? Yeah, I mean, the only real thing that bothered me throughout that whole plot line was just that we never got an answer from her grandmother, and there was no like specific answer to, you know, all of the problems that were going on and all of the terrible things that were happening. So Manon is still confused, and so are we as the reader, which is probably the point.
The journey we're on.
But you know, but I also, you know, I wasn't expecting the King of Adarlan to die, but I should have when they announced like who Erewhon or whatever his name was, because I was like, oh, so this is the big bad. Like very clearly, as soon as he was introduced, I was like, okay, so this is the big threat. Got it. And that's why I think a lot of this felt very much like the end of part 1 of this series, because they're like, the guy you thought was bad did not so bad. He's dead now. But there's a bigger one, and that's just, you know, that's how fantasy stories work. I'm on board. But yeah, so I didn't expect him to die, but I am excited to get to learn more about this King of the Valg. Whatever's going on with him. And Parrington being the true villain, or at least possessed by the true villain. But yeah, Allied was rough, man. That was a rough storyline, and her almost getting, you know, impregnated by demons was really scary. But I'm really excited for what's gonna happen to her, because she's just limping her way through the woods alone.
She is such a interesting character. Like from the second she's introduced, there's something about her that I was like, I like her.
Well, I also,
and I want to know more about her. She just doesn't like. She has that like, I'm sad about the lot I've been given, but there's, even before she starts like really trying, there is that like, but this is not all for me. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And I'm also really interested in the fact that like she has a tie to a god, Anieth? Or something along those lines. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but
I don't remember.
But and you know, she mentioned it multiple times through the book and like the gifts that Anieth gave her or whatever. I kind of just wrote it off because I was just like, we don't know a ton about the gods in this world. They like talk about them sometimes, but they've never been like relevant, and we don't know if they're real or not. It's not like the gods walked the earth in XYZ, or at least I haven't noticed that. But someone spoke to Manon when she was going to save Allied. And so I assume that was that god. I don't know. But anyway, I'm interested to see what that is about, because I just think that that's really fun. And she's like off on her own, and I assume that the next book is going to like have a subplot where she's just like making her way to Terrasen, which and also holding a word key.
Yeah, cool, yeah.
Which is crazy.
She's just like, gotta do it. Okay, here we go. Limping around. Here we go. Gotta do it.
And you know, and then following that, Cultain, tragic, so sad, really awful. Just the things that some of the female characters go through in this book, I was truly shocked to read outside of like a somewhat grimdark fantasy series. I mean, it didn't go all the way to like depicting a lot of those scenes, but I mean, it also didn't leave a ton to the imagination, because it just says what the results of those actions are. It's really tragic. Her sacrifice at the end, or maybe not even sacrifice, just her vengeance, was an extremely emotional and epic scene. Really cool. The fact I
remember reading that being like, oh.
I should have guessed that it was the word key in her arm, but I did not. And so when she just cut it out and gave it to Allied, I went, oh my god.
She's like, I'm over it. They suck. This is my opportunity.
I was wondering how, like, well, I didn't know that they were going to leave Allied alone. At that point, like the fact that the witches went back to Morath. But I was wondering how because Allied doesn't seem to have witch powers, so I was wondering how like she was going to remain relevant. But here, cool, we'll give you one of the like big secret items. That works great.
Go.
And you
go,
just
baby,
walk alone through the woods. It's like, okay. Yeah. Really.
Well, that also just shows the trust that they quickly put in her too. Yeah,
I'm really interested to see what's going on with Like, I can't wait to see her storyline move forward. I can't wait to see her reunion with everyone. And I'm also interested to see if they're going to be like, who are you? Because the way that she thought about it is like, no one really liked me, and I don't know if they remember me. And it would be, I know it's probably not going to happen, but it would be very funny to me if they were like, huh, who? Just for a second. And then they did remember, but whatever.
Humor sense of humor is fun.
I know, but I am really interested to see what happens with the witches in the next book, because they went back, which was somewhat surprising for me, but at the same time, like, you know, Manon's not going to leave another witch there who needs her protection, and neither are the 13. And so I'm assuming the next book is going to be much more than actively resisting or you know, using some sort of subterfuge to, you know, ruin Erewhon's plans or whatever. I don't know. But I think it's a more interesting choice to have them stay. Because we'll see what happens. But yeah, that was absolutely my favorite plot line. Even when all the stuff was happening at Rifthold at the end, I was like, man, it's been a few chapters since we were at Morath. I want to know what's going on there. Which I mean, it's a I don't know. I'm really drawn to that particular plot line, to those characters.
I love the witches. Now.
Okay, so now I guess it's time to get into
a little bit.
Two of the main characters, or the main character, Aelin and Rowan. This is the first book where I said this to you, like, within a few chapters of starting to read. I was like, I don't like Aelin. And I don't know that I'd ever, like, so definitely felt it before. But the way she acted in the beginning of this book, I was like, this is not a character I'm rooting for. I think that she's needlessly cruel. And, you know, being an angsty teen is one thing, but, like, being needlessly antagonistic to people who are trying to help you doesn't, you know, make people want to root for you. And if this was a series where you're not supposed to like the protagonist, that would be fine, but this isn't a series where you're not supposed to like the protagonist. At least I don't think so. And so, I don't know.
So, you know, I interpreted her behavior as, like, that's her protective mechanism, not excusing the way that she acts, but that's very much her, like, if she makes herself spiky and scary and mean, then the people, like, she doesn't have to, she already feels like she's a terrible person.
Yes.
And so if everyone else feels like she's a terrible person, then, like, nobody loves her, nobody is, like, dependent on her being good or her doing anything good. I think it's, like, her feeling a certain way about herself and projecting that into other people to kind of protect herself, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like that is an often a, like, protective mechanism or coping mechanism to people who are really volatile. And in the end, it's really not anything of them being, like, bad people. It's them protecting themselves and other people around them because they feel like if people are farther away from them, then nobody loves them, and they don't, you know, they don't have to deal with any of that. That's how I personally interpreted it, but I understand that interpretation because I don't think her behavior is necessarily great. She's just a...
It was tough to read. She moved past it in the book, and I think the big thing was, for me, that she's been that way for most of the books in the series, and absolutely. I was just like, I wonder why it's really, like, sticking out to me right now that this is a problem. And it's because she just hadn't grown at all. Like, there was no growth. And it feels like there was growth over the course of this book. I don't know. I guess we'll see in the next book. And I hope it continues to move forward. But it's just like 4 books is a long time to react that way in almost all situations, particularly when you meet new people. She threatened Nesrin's life for legitimately no reason within like 3 chapters of the book starting. And I'm not bothered by the fact that she's, like, you know, threatening a character I like's life. That's totally fine. It's that logically I couldn't follow her thought process as to why you are pulling a knife on her.
I think it's mainly just, like, where has she ever learned to trust? Ever. In her whole life.
And the thing to me was, I'm just like, trust her with what? Like,
not being against her, I suppose? Like, not being against the good fight?
I don't know. I didn't, because she didn't even really have any questions to ask her. This one was like, follow me, I'll take you to, you know, like, the rebels. And then she just was like, tell me why not to kill you. And I was like, there's not a question in there.
What?
Anyway, it really bothered me.
Okay.
But she seemed to somewhat start moving past it as the book went on. But at the same time, she was surrounded by like her inner circle for the rest of the book. So it may just be that she didn't have the opportunity to be that crappy to new people. Yeah, I mean, so that aside, I mean, the other big problem I had with the beginning of the book was, again, you know, the entire plot to take down Arabin, which was great. Arabin was suitably gross. Good lord, he's the worst, and I'm glad he's dead. But it was... Yeah, and look, part of this is on me for not trusting the author, because I just didn't, quite frankly, because I hadn't seen her do something like that before, and I was just like, I was really struggling to follow a lot of what was going on, because I didn't understand the logic behind a lot of characters' actions, because they were just kind of like doing stuff, and I didn't understand why they bothered continuing to work with Arabin if their plan was just to kill him, and why not just do that? Because even when her plan all like came to fruition, and to be fair, they needed money, and so that's a part of it.
Yeah.
But like, you didn't really need to, if your plan was just to like sneak into the bank and change his will, and then have a meeting with him, but then still murder him in the dead of night, or like sneak in and murder him, you didn't need to meet with him or deal with him at all. And I understand the plot line was kind of revealed of like she wanted to check one last time.
Also, she wanted full revenge.
Yeah.
Like, she goes around like destroying his little like investments in his circuit, and I think that's very much an Aelin thing of like,
sure,
it's all or nothing.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. It just I had a hard time with it because and also because it did the YA favorite trope of like people are keeping secrets and no one wants to tell anyone else what's going on.
Yeah.
And you know, fine. So you know, it got better as the book went on, and you know, the plan was a cool twist. I did imagine, I was like, because I kept talking about money, and I was like, somehow she's gonna get Arabin's cash. I don't know how, but I know she's gonna. But yeah, so that was well done. It just, I don't know, a lot of the first part of it rubbed me the wrong way. And it also felt very long, I will say. Like, the first part of the book is really just the story of how, I mean, there's the Morath subplot that starts, you know, building, but everything in Rifthold is really just the story of how she kills Arabin. That's most of it. And it felt long, because it feels like so much more happened in the latter 40% of the book that I'm just like, it felt like it could have been a little bit shorter.
Sure.
But yeah, the second half of the book, I liked Aelin much more. Or I think that when her power came back and everything that she did at the very end, I mean, that whole sequence was really cool. Yeah. And the way that she melted the glass after the castle was destroyed was amazing. Yeah, it's just, yeah, I'm... And the end of her returning to Terrasen was really emotional. Yeah. It's really great, and her having like her court and her crew, her cousin Adian, who thank God there's no incest stuff. I'm glad that we nipped that in the bud. Rowan, like Lysandra, her giving Lysandra the land was beautiful. Yeah, I'm really excited to see. I hope this growth continues in the direction it is going. I know that growth in life and stuff is not linear, and so it would be totally understandable if she started acting, you know, in some of the more toxic ways she has been known to. But I really hope that we move in a more positive way, just because it's been 4 books now and she's done a lot of toxic stuff. So, but so has everyone else. So, what can you do?
Exactly.
There is an interesting thing about this entire book that I didn't really understand until they mentioned it like enough times in this book that I think Sarah J. Maas was like, I don't think people understand the timeline, so I really want to make sure you understand. It's only been 9 months since the events of the first book, which blew my mind. I thought it had been a few years, which also leads me to, apparently, Liz told me that the scene in which Rowan shows up, everyone loves, and is like this big thing. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, Rowan's here. I think it would have been more interesting if he was stuck as a bird for the entirety of the book. But anyway, I was just like, why is...
Well, I also like, I mean, this is my personal hot take of this book. I wasn't excited to see Rowan. I like Rowan. Rowan and Aelin at this point in the series are not my favorite. I don't know if it's like the chemistry is not there for me, whether I was frustrated with the way that they started. Also knowing that he's her distant relative really threw me off a little bit. And I know that scene that he comes in and she's like, I smell pine on the air. I'm supposed to go, oh, I didn't. I really didn't. And I felt like I was like, oh, where's the romance reader in me? But I just think it's like I'm not super obsessed with them at this point in the series as a couple. And also, like you said, it's like it's been like 5 weeks. Like, you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay.
Yeah, that was my thing. Yeah. It's
but
been
I will say, I guess the surprise there is like that was never considered that he would come. Like, it was never planned. So I understand that part of it being a surprise.
Yes.
But also, I agree with you of like there wasn't enough distance. There wasn't enough in the relationship there for me to get the emotional weight of what I think that scene is supposed to be.
Sure.
Personally.
I didn't really feel like a ton of emotional weight in that scene. I mostly was just like, oh, okay, cool, Rowan's here. Honestly, I honestly was happy about it because I was just like, cool, thank goodness, because they introduced him as like what I assume is a major character in the last book, and I was like, are we really not going to get any Rowan in this book? So I was glad he showed up. I will say, I'm thinking about it right now, most of the functions he served, I didn't super love. I mean, I think Rowan's a fine character, but I do think he mostly just exists to be hot and be sexy, and that's fine.
Fair.
But, you know, he immediately comes in and is like, they literally make up drama between him and Adian, and that actually bothered me way more than it should have, because it was such a small part of the book. But then, considering the fact that it was such a small part of the book, why did it need to be there? Like, they literally came in and said, and retconned something, because the only court we know of is Maeve's, and Maeve has a bunch of people who have sworn blood oaths to her. And Adian suddenly thinks, right after Rowan gets here, but that blood oath's going to be mine, because Terrasen has always only had one. And I went, you just made that up so that they have a reason to fight. And then, like, 4 chapters later, they've settled it. It was so pointless. I didn't want to have to waste my time reading words about it. Like, I literally was just like, I don't understand. These characters can have drama for other reasons. They already do because they're hyper-aggressive males. They don't need this to... it bothered the crap out of me.
That's good.
There's enough drama and stuff going around. And also, the other function he served was to, like, pretend that him and Aelin weren't gonna totally do it. And I was just like, we know you are!
Come on, guys.
And, like, I understand that that's a part of the romance novel and the tension and the release and the build. Yes, sure, fine. But it was just like... There's
always gotta be something, because, like, if you get together too soon, then there's gotta be something that pulls them apart.
Yes.
So you keep coming back.
And there was the bit where she reached out to try and start with him, and he went like, no! And instead of explaining it, like a grown man... And he's like
1,000-year-old.
He's like centuries old, by the way. Like a grown man, he like an emotional teenager goes, "No, don't touch me," and like runs away. I was like, this is ridiculous. You should be ashamed. But yeah, I mean, look, I like Rowan as a character. Fine. He doesn't like. He doesn't.
He's a cool character.
I think he's a cool character. I don't. You know, his backstory, again, suitably tragic.
Yeah, got it.
But you know, and the stuff with him and Lorcan was fine. I kind of was just like, okay, Lorcan is here. Lorcan really only served the purpose of being like, remember Maeve? And also, I'm going to come in and save you Deus Ex Machina style at the end when you guys are going to die in the tower with when you're blowing up and bringing back magic. Which, you know, that's fine. Lorcan's kind of like a dark horse, so who knows where he's going to go with that. I think he could potentially do something very interesting in the plot. Yeah. Yeah, Rowan was just kind of fine. I mean, I'm glad he was there. I would have rather him be there than not, but he didn't really make a big impact on me, emotionally or otherwise. Like, the romance was fine because I knew it was going to happen the whole time.
Sure.
So, yeah, I don't know. So, I don't have any strong feelings about his character either way, except for, like, a few things that annoyed me in the beginning, but were also things that I kind of expected in a YA romantic novel.
Right.
So, I'm like, I can't get that upset about it. Or at least I try not to let myself get that bummed out about it, because I'm just like, if little things like that are going to actively ruin my reading experience, then I just can't read books like this, because they're just going to be there. And so that's totally fine. And sometimes I find them kind of amusing and funny anyway, so.
So, there you go.
But yeah, I think that's mostly everything.
That's your thoughts?
Those are my thoughts, yeah. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No.
Okay. Alright, so what do we want to rate this one out of?
I mean, do you do, like, glass castle? Is it glass castle?
They were. It was a glass castle. Yeah.
Glass castle could be
Yeah,
cool.
I think a glass castle could be cool. So last time, so last chance
Yeah,
to
it's
do it,
gone.
'cause it's gone
Baby,
now,
no more
baby.
glass castle.
Okay, yeah, glass castles. I would give this a 4 out of 5 glass castles. I liked the ending a lot. I like what is being set up a lot. I didn't like the first part of the book, or it's not that I didn't like it. I just had a lot of issues with it. So, but I am again optimistic about what's gonna come next, and I hope I am not burned like I was last time with Air and Fire. So, we'll see.
We'll see.
What about you?
I definitely give this a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5 glass castles.
Yeah,
All right, all right.
This was, like I said, this is when it really started rolling for me. It wasn't my absolute favorite, but there were so many things that excited me in this. Like, so many people's journeys that excited me. The Manons starting to flip was probably my favorite.
Yep.
I like the new characters. The action at the end was like, so, yeah, I would give this 4.5 glass castles.
Glass castles?
Out of
4.5 glass castles out of 5.
Yeah, did I say
You said 4.
Oh, what?
What? 4.5 glass castles. Changed her rating
4.5.
within the same video.
Yeah, whoa, crazy.
So those are our thoughts on Queen of Shadows. I'm really hoping that next month I will think that the next book is even better. I think that it potentially could be. So I hope we keep moving in that direction. Thank you all so much for watching, and
We'll see you on our next adventure.